It's time for the hot topic of the hour. The CEO of Polymarket, New York City home, raided by the FBI yesterday, happening just 1 week after the betting agency successfully predicted the outcome of the presidential election. Fox Business's Lydia Hu now with all that is going on. Lydia.
Yeah, good morning there, Maria. This happened yesterday morning. The FBI raided the Manhattan home of 26-year-old Polymarket CEO Shane Coplin, taking his cell phone and electronic devices from his apartment. That raid, as you mentioned, comes after the crypto predictions betting platform correctly predicted Donald Trump's victory last week, contrary to opinion polling. A spokesperson for the company called the raid, quote, obvious political retribution by the outgoing administration. And Coplin, the CEO, added this in an X post for himself, quote, it's discouraging that the current administration would seek a last-ditch effort to go after companies they deem to be associated with political opponents. The incumbents should do some self-reflection and recognize that taking a more pro-business, pro-startup approach may be what would have changed their fate this election. Now, the FBI and DOJ did not immediately respond to our request for comments, but the agencies are reportedly investigating Polymarket for allegedly accepting trades from U.S.-based users. As you know, election betting was legalized in the U.S. just this year by a court ruling, but Polymarket is not licensed with the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. The platform is not supposed to be available in the U.S., according to a settlement it reached with the government 2 years ago. But Polymarket gained a lot of attention in this election cycle. Around $3.5 billion were wagered on the presidential election. And Maria, it also got the platform investment from Republican billionaire Peter Thiel, who supported Trump back in 2016 and has also mentored J.D. Vance. Now, since the election, questions have been raised about some of the betting activity on Polymarket. One anonymous user reportedly cashed in huge over Trump's victory. He was known as the Trump whale and reportedly made a profit of $85 million by betting Trump would win both the presidency and the popular vote. The company says that he is a French national. Maria.
All right, Lydia, thanks very much. This is outrageous that the FBI is not going down easy. They know President Trump is coming for them after all the behavior against Trump. And what do? They show up at Polymarket CEO's home and raid the place at 6 o'clock in the morning. They confiscated his phone, his computer, and his girlfriend's computer as well, Mark. Your reaction?
Yeah, so now he's taking bets on whether or not he's going to get raided again, right? I mean, poor guy. They did nothing wrong. I mean, they accurately showed that the money, the smart money, was on President Trump. I can almost guarantee that if Kamala Harris won the election, there would have been no raid.
Yeah.
Right. And in this whole concept of U.S.-based voters placing bets, anyone can do that using a VPN. It's going to happen, right? I mean, and that has nothing to do with the way Polymarket is run. That is people who are trying to beat the system and they go around. So, you know, whether or not that happened is a completely different question, but it has nothing to do with the owner of Polymarket running a clean and ethical business.
There are other prediction sites. Were they raided? Why Polymarket?
And it also strikes me as alarming. We're talking about 28 FBI agents show up at this person's door at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're talking about a business that's being, and they're questioning whether or not the business did business in the United States. Like, is that normal? Is that what happens when people are questioning somebody's business practices, that you have 28 FBI agents show up,
guns blazing,
while you're sleeping?
Total
intimidation. It's one thing to show up during working hours and say we're concerned about business practice or question them, but this is a extreme reaction that you can't help but wonder what's going on there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It confirms the speculation that the DOJ and the FBI are running scared of Donald Trump coming back to the White House, and it's because they know what they've done to him.
Yes.
Beginning with the Russia collusion lie, to the impeachments when they were sitting on Hunter Biden's laptop, to the indictments. And the list is long. They know what they've done to him. They know he's going to try to see some accountability. And that's what's behind his nomination of Matt Gaetz. He's a bulldog, and Trump wants a bulldog.
Yes, he wants someone to basically clean house and put these, agencies in their place. And it does look like political retaliation. I mean, even Nate Silver, who's an elections forecasting expert, as we know, is an advisor to Polymarket. And he's often said that these betting markets really democratize election information for voters. financial elites have been able to put money on races with, derivatives and other things, but average Americans didn't really have that chance, and they do through these prediction markets, which tend to be more informative in many ways than some models. And so this is, I think, just a chilling crackdown, and I hope that one of the first moves of Matt Gaetz is to put this agency in its place.
It's interesting because you never really see this kind of stuff with Democrats. Right? I mean,
Right.
like, how many times have people questioned how perfectly Nancy Pelosi and her husband invest?
Gosh,
Right?
that's such a good point.
How many times have people questioned, wow, they bought Microsoft stock a couple of months before they got a big government contract. Wow. I mean, it's just all the coincidences about how they invest. Never a question in terms of an investigation
certainly
there.
not 28 FBI agents
Right.
raiding at 6 a.m.
Right.
Not a level playing field out there, but you're right. I mean, there's been questions about the insider trading possibilities within Congress for quite some time, with Nancy and Paul Pelosi being the biggest examples, and there's never any investigation, right?
Yeah. But now we've got the founder and CEO of Polymarket waking up to 28 FBI agents behind his door, guns blazing. And let's just be clear, no charges. There were
Yeah.
no charges dropped. So we'll see if there are any charges.
We should have known this would happen out of this administration when they wanted to hire 80,000 new IRS
Yeah.
agents
Yeah.
and arm them. You're going to arm accountants?
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
what?
Welcome back. This eye-opening story from Politico reporting that Justice Department officials are ready to quit and run for the exits, that they're, quote, terrified, losing their minds, panicked that Trump won. This after the Biden White House is accused of getting the Justice Department to go after Trump. Let's give a warm welcome to the show, former Trump White House National Security Council official, the author of the best-selling book, Government Gangsters, Kash Patel. Kash, it's your debut here. We were so excited to talk to you. Kash, what do you make of what Politico is reporting? Can you tell us what's really been going on inside the Justice Department when it comes to Democrat abuses of power?
What an auspicious day to make my debut. We are the home of the free because of the brave. Happy Veterans Day to everybody. And look, I was a national security prosecutor at the Department of Justice. I recall Russiagate, being the lead investigator at the House Intelligence Committee, where we exposed not just FISA abuse, but unconstitutional activity against a political opponent. Where was the outcry then? Where's the outcry from the career officials since, when Christopher Wray and the FBI illegally surveilled 275,000 Americans in 1 year alone? The reforms have not been implemented by these career officials. And let's reflect back on the Trump administration and his time in DOJ. He didn't seek retribution or revenge against anybody. He wanted to follow the Constitution and the law singularly and have it applied equally to all. And these career officials were absent and silent in the face of that massive corruption.
So Politico reports Justice Department lawyers with ties to Jack Smith and Robert Mueller's probe that staffers who are, just working with these lawyers, they're concerned they're going to be either frozen out or fired. Won't it depend on his attorney general pick, if it's Senator Mike Lee, former DNI John Ratcliffe, or Ken Paxton?
Look, those conversations will have between the president and the AG, but I just want to point out a legal principle that the Department of Justice has issued for 50 plus years, that it is in violation of the executive branch and the judicial and executive judiciaries to commingle investigation of a sitting president. That wasn't a decision by Donald J. Trump. That was a decision by the Department of Justice. That's not a decision by an attorney general. That's one in which the Department of Justice has adjudicated that it would violate the separation of powers clause for a sitting DOJ to investigate a sitting president. They are simply following established law.
Kash, how bad was this Biden White House in terms of lawfare abuses and government corruption?
Well, look, it's pretty. I mean, I don't know where you start, from 51 intel letter to impeachment 1 and 2 to Russiagate to everything in between. I think they are the ones that weaponize justice. And President Trump has been out there singularly saying, we want to unify this country. And he has said his revenge is that it's not anything related to revenge. It's the success of this nation. And that is what we should all be championing. He championed it on the campaign trail. He received a resounding mandate. And I think folks at the Department of Justice should want a commander in chief who won't weaponize justice and politicize it.
Kash Patel, you hit it out of the park. Great to see you. Come back soon.
But let's go to Chad Pergram. He has more on how this second vote went. Hey, Chad. Good afternoon, Neil. Well, as you say, we have a new Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, the Republican from South Dakota. This went to a second ballot. There were three candidates in this race. You had John Thune, you had John Cornyn, and you had Rick Scott. The issue here is that the winner had to get a supermajority, had to get an outright majority of all 53 Republicans casting ballots. So the magic number was 27. I should note that incoming senators-elect were in this meeting. Also, J.D. Vance was in this meeting. We don't know definitively that everyone cast their ballots here. But what happened on that first ballot is that John Thune did not get to that number, that magic number of 27. He was a couple of votes ahead of John Cornyn, and Rick Scott came in with only 13 votes. And per the Senate Republican Conference rules, the third place vote getter drops out. So this then boiled down to a two-way race between John Cornyn and John Thune prevailed. I should note that he is the second leader in the Senate from South Dakota. You know, he came to the Senate in 2004 after beating Tom Daschle. The Democratic leader had been both the majority leader and the minority leader. John Cornyn had served as the majority whip. Right now, John Thune was the minority whip, and there was a certain group of Senate Republicans who wanted a break from the current leadership team. You might remember that Rick Scott, he ran for the Senate leadership post 2 years ago against Mitch McConnell. He only got 10 votes there, but he ran again. He did a little bit better, but it wasn't enough to beat John Thune. You know, here's the issue. A lot of people talked about, why one candidate or the other might prevail in this. It was generally believed that John Thune probably had done the most work. He had, raised a lot of money, done a lot of campaigning, but he also had the best relationships. Now, what would his relationship be with President-elect Trump? There was a point in time where they were not on the same page by any stretch of the imagination. Back in 2016, after the Access Hollywood tape, Thune asked for President Trump, then candidate Trump, to drop off the ballot. After the second impeachment trial in early 2021, after the Capitol riot, he voted to acquit, John Thune did, of the former president, but he said that he thought that he tried to subvert democracy. But since that point in time, he and the president-elect have patched things up. Now, you had this meeting just close to the Capitol this morning between President-elect Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and all House Republicans. We thought there might be a meeting today with the new leader, whoever that was going to be, and President-elect Trump. We don't think that's going to happen at some point today. It might happen later this week. And we do expect to hear from the new leadership team at some point later this afternoon. They have a couple of other races there down ballot to parse out, and that's something that they'll continue to do as they debate these candidacies for these lower-tier leadership positions inside the old Senate chamber. Oh, and I should note this, Neil, we might not definitively know who voted for who. The reason, it's a secret ballot. Some senators will come out and say, this is who I voted for, and I'm proud to say that. Others will play their cards close to their vest.
Yeah, look, we're going to take the handcuffs off ICE and let ICE do the job that they know how to do. They just haven't been able to do it. Sanctuary cities, President Trump may have to sue them again, take away their federal funding. But, if sanctuary cities don't want to help, then get the hell out of the way because we're coming. That has to be done. This is I said this earlier, this is the biggest national security vulnerability this nation's ever seen. The crime rate's up sky high. And we've seen the Tren de Agua, MS-13. These gangs are creating havoc in our major cities. They need to be targeted, and I would hope under our new leadership, President Trump, these sanctuary cities come to the table, or at least work with us on the public safety threats.
You said you're going to start raids. Okay, what kind of raids? Who's being targeted?
I don't use the term raids. We do operations, all target enforcement operations. People like to use raids on worksite enforcement. We will be doing worksite enforcement. Let me explain why. Because this administration stopped it. They said they're all about human trafficking and sex trafficking, but they stopped doing worksite raids. Worksite raids, worksite operations. That's where we find most victims of trafficking. Forced labor, whether it's meatpacking plants or massage parlors, that's where the victims of trafficking end up working. So we have to do worksite enforcement for two reasons. Number one, to rescue these people, and number two, hold the employers accountable. No one hires an illegal alien out of goodness or heart. They hire them because they work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their U.S. competition that actually employs U.S. citizen employees. So it has to be done. Number one priority is to save these people who are forced into labor.
Was it an easy decision to make to come out of retirement?
For the second time?
Yeah, right.
You know, I've been on this network. First of all, I love this network, and I'm one of the bad things is I got to leave the network, and I just love Fox. Anyways, I can't stand on the station for 4 years complaining about the border and what a mess they made out of it. The fentanyl deaths, the terrorism, the sex trafficking. Then the president calls me and says, "Okay, I want you to fix it." I can't say no to that. I mean, it's the president of the United States, and this is I'm emotional about this. I've been doing this for 34 years. The president needs my help. He's going to get it. Secure, but you can't have national security if you don't have border security. We got to know what's coming in, who's coming in, where's coming in, why it's coming in, and we're going to do that.
We shall miss you, Tom. You've been a valued guest on this program for a long time. We shall miss you indeed. But congratulations. You're doing what you really want to do, and that's a fine thing. Thank you, sir. We'll see you again. God bless you. At some point, we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. God bless you indeed. Confirm that. They're out first.
Exactly. That should be the priority. That is the priority right now, at least from what we know, moving forward, going into the new year, is to prioritize removing criminals that have violent criminal backgrounds, that have orders of removal. Those should be prioritized to be removed before anything else. And of course, those are the public safety and national security threats, as Tom Homan just laid out right there. That should have been the priority with this current administration, is to remove those threats. But unfortunately, as he mentioned also, we have seen just a very low number of removals as far as criminals in the past 4 years. So that's why we need this change. We need to remove those that will cause or do pose a significant threat to public safety and national security. So we are definitely, in support of that as far as here in Texas. And we're happy to see that we're going to have some change in leadership moving forward that's actually going to address those type of threats.
But do you know where they are? The criminal illegal. Do you know where they are? And are you going to have to rely on ICE to go get them?
Exactly, Stuart. It's not going to be an easy task. It's not going to happen from one day to the next. The thing is, a lot of these criminals, you're not going to find them, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to be very tedious. That's why it's very important that a lot of these states and cities cooperate with ICE, cooperate with the new administration, especially when you take some of these individuals to jail and place detainers on them for ICE. It's a lot easier for ICE to remove these individuals once they're in jail. Now, when they're not in jail, it's a much more dangerous environment now for ICE. Now it's more tedious for them to look for these individuals and have them removed. That's why we need this cooperation from everyone. Okay. Of course, in Texas, Tom Homan, the new administration, will have a great ally in Texas with Governor Abbott. We are doing it right now. We are trying to locate some of these criminals, some of these gangs that have committed crimes in Texas, arrest them, place them in jail, and place these detainers on them for ICE.
It sounds like morale has improved dramatically with Trump's win. Listen to this.
Morale is through the roof. We received hundreds of calls, texts, emails, just saying how happy the agents are. There's a lot of agents that had originally said that they would retire if President Trump did not win. And now those same agents are saying they're going to hold back on their retirement because they want to serve under this administration again, because they know exactly how it was during his first administration. They know this one's going to be even better.
Lieutenant, some people who resigned or retired from Border Patrol, we hear that they're coming back. They want to come back. That accurate?
Stuart, I mean, the Border Patrol right now, I mean, their morale is higher than it's ever been. Now they have actually something to look forward to, actually have some type of fulfillment in what they do every single day. I'm actually out here this morning working with Border Patrol, and I'm talking to some of the agents, and they're just excited to see what's going to come the next year. So even those that are retired, they do want to come back because they do want to actually help this administration carry out and advance their objective, and that is to go after some of these criminals and have them removed so we can have a safer country and obviously to secure our borders. So it's a great day. It's a great time for Border Patrol. They've needed this support for a long time now, and they haven't received it. So now they have something to look forward to going into the new year and actually the next 4 years. So, but again, it's going to be very challenging. But again, having that cooperation with Border Patrol and everyone else, it's going to make this job much successful and also much easier for us to do.
All right, Lieutenant Olivares, thanks for being with us this morning. We'll see you again later. Let's bring in our own legal eagle, if you don't mind me calling her that. Her name is Shannon Bream, and she's on the right-hand side of the screen. All right, Shannon, in your judgment, right now, does Gates get confirmed?
He's got an uphill battle when you have members of your own party saying, ooh, I got to think about this, or that's a shock, or you did have Lindsey Graham, though, saying today, I voted for a lot of people I didn't like. So that leaves a lot of room open for where his vote may go. But listen, it's a tough vetting process to get through judiciary and get to the floor. And, you know, my first thought was yesterday when this was floated or announced by President-elect Trump, I thought, okay, he is putting Matt Gaetz out there, knowing he's got a really difficult road forward. Maybe he's got a different AG pick, and he says, okay, you were shocked by the Matt Gaetz pick. That didn't work. Here's who I'm really picking. Maybe somebody that would have been a little bit shocking had it been the first person he picked, but seems more palatable to Capitol Hill if Gaetz doesn't get through. But there are a lot of steps, and it's sparking this talk, too, from President-elect Trump. As you know, he asked all of the GOP Senate majority candidates to commit to this idea of recess appointments, and maybe that's exactly what he has in mind for Matt Gaetz.
Gaetz, if he becomes Attorney General, the belief is that he would go after the Justice Department. Wouldn't that be a form of retribution?
Yeah, that's exactly what President Trump's critics have said. They're worried about him going after enemies and using lawfare and doing the things he says have been done against him. And they see Matt Gaetz very much as the face of somebody who would do that. Now, the president has said, President-elect has said, success is going to be my revenge. I want everybody to do well. I want us to move forward. But he also has had very specific language about the DOJ, about the mistreatment he believes he's been subject to for years. And he wants somebody to clean out the DOJ. And so I think dropping the name Matt Gaetz yesterday sent shockwaves through the Justice Department and beyond here in D.C.
Well, it sure did. The ripple effect was extra. There was a tsunami of reaction to that. Next one, Shannon. Special counsel Jack Smith, he's asked an appeals court to halt his appeal against Donald Trump for the alleged mishandling of classified documents. Look, it's very complicated, but it seems to me that the lawfare against Trump is just falling apart completely. Is it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think these federal cases, Jack Smith knows that they're sort of on a dead end at this point. So while yesterday, that Mar-a-Lago documents case, which is on appeal to the 11th Circuit, just that one step below the Supreme Court, while he didn't say we're ready to throw out the case, he did say let's put this case on hold. It's pretty much the same thing he's done with the D.C. case, the January 6th federal case. And so it's very much a signaling that this is kind of the beginning of the end for those federal cases. They'll be winding down.
The last one for you, Shannon. The Republicans hold the House. That's the news. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says it's his fault. He takes responsibility. So, Shannon, what happens now?
Well, the Republicans have probably a very tiny majority, which has been, you know, like herding cats, we say on Capitol Hill. It comes with its own headaches, but Republicans are relieved to be in charge, even if they know it's going to be a tight minority or majority. And of course, President Trump has selected some people he thinks are very talented, pulling them out of the House GOP. Those special elections will have to happen. So it gives an even tighter margin for Speaker Johnson, who's going to continue in that role. But interesting that, you know, the top Democrat in the House, Congressman Jeffries, is saying, yeah, I own this, and we've got some soul searching to do. We'll have one of those Democrats on Fox News Sunday this weekend. James Clyburn is going to join us to talk about where they go from here on that post-election autopsy.
And that's a good get. Shannon Bream, thanks very much for joining us, Shannon. We will see you again soon.
Thank you, Vivek. Good. He's working with Elon on efficiency. They're working on efficiency, among other things, and they're going to be saving a lot of money and making our country stronger and better. And they'll be coming out with individual reports, but a big one toward the end. And you put those two together, it's going to be really great.
That's President-elect Trump speaking at Mar-a-Lago last night, praising Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's plans to cut government spending and waste. Musk and Ramaswamy will be heading the Department of Government Efficiency, which is now using X to hire employees. The agency says it is looking for, quote, super high IQ small government revolutionaries willing to work 80-plus hours a week on unglamorous cost cutting. And there will be zero compensation. Joining me now is 8 VC managing partner and Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale. Joe, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. How do you like that post from Elon? That's not such a great sales pitch. Work 80 hours, no pay.
It sounds like he wants the type of people that have built the greatest companies in Silicon Valley to come jump in. And you know, Maria, I'm just friends with these guys helping out on the side, and I've gotten hundreds of notes from people. How can I help? How can I? I mean, this is an exciting time in our history. We love it. We love it.
I love that.
You know, America should be growing. Our economy should be growing at twice the rate it is. And like so many of us for years, for decades, have seen this sclerotic bureaucracy, this fourth branch of government that's permanently in charge of our country, and wish someone could do something about it. So this is a huge opportunity.
It sure is. And thank you as a business person and an investor for pitching in here. It's great to see Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and yourself and others really pitch in here, very patriotic to try to help get things better in government. Now, you were with Musk and Ramaswamy in Palm Beach this week. How did that go? Tell us about it. What have you learned about their roles and what they're about to take on?
Oh, well, I was just visiting friends. I can't speak for them, but what I'll tell you is this is a very serious effort, right? The only way this is going to work is that they're part of the transition and helping out and making sure we're putting people in who are going to be bold. Listen, Maria, when you go to D.C., one of the rules in D.C. is this fourth branch of government. It is cocky, right? It is so convinced. I even talk to friends and friends of friends now, like, oh, they can't do anything. They're not going to be able to stop us. We're too powerful. Like, there's two rules for what that government actually does. One is they give hundreds of billions of dollars to their friends. And two is they protect themselves. They have not only most of the Democratic Party, but also a lot of Republicans that for decades have protected the special interests of these bureaucrats. And these bureaucrats, they're convinced nothing can be done to them. And I think there's going to be so much happening at once. There's going to be so many regulations they're going after to get rid of. And there's going to be so much waste and so many people, so many things that shouldn't be there. And they're not doing it to attack these people. I think they actually want to be the energies. We want to be very generous to the people, but we need to get rid of this waste. And there's a lot of smart people coming to do that. And I'm very excited about it.
Well, I mean, look, this is the first time in a long time we've actually seen the administration, a leader, the president, incoming president, have a growth strategy. Okay, for the last 4 years, growth was not a priority, right? And now it's a priority. So that is very optimistic because it tells you that, yeah, if growth is a priority, we're going to see real growth. Trump has been filling more key cabinet positions. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the only way you can actually do this, remember, is with extreme boldness, right? I think people don't understand, like, this has to be, it's a form of a war. Like, the people, all these departments in D.C., they're set up to defend themselves. And they assume that people are going to come in, they're kind of going to get along. Maybe people will try to move around a few percent on the margin, but they assume no one's going to ever really be able to change them or take them over. And so I think what's going to surprise people is, and if you see this with the picks from this transition, with the picks from President Trump, like, they are ready to be bold, right? You look at the new SecDef, and you have someone who's young, who's smart, who's a warrior, and who's not going to be pushed around, and who's been willing to speak up and say what's broken, say what we have to get rid of, and rethink things from scratch. And you see a lot of these different picks. I think you're really picking people who are bold and who are ready to go to war for our country and actually change things. And in some ways, you say, Maria, it really is like a sort of new founding in some ways for what we're doing here, for how the government's going to work if they get it right.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why Trump's detractors are afraid of him. Okay, because he's going to come up and break some stuff and, start again. And they want the status quo. They're afraid of losing their grip on power. Trump has been filling more key cabinet positions. He's tapped Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. Some of these are real non-traditional names, and that's the point. Tell us your thoughts on his cabinet pick so far.
Well, Maria, there's a lot of really bold people. There's a lot of people that are not willing to be controversial. Even last time in the Trump administration, a lot of the people, if you looked, they really didn't want to be attacked too much in the press. They didn't want to be seen as too aggressive. They didn't want to kind of make their lives stressful by going against things. And I think this time it's very clear. The message is we're going to pick people who are the boldest people, who are not afraid to be attacked. In fact, who are going to be attacked, but they're going to work with the administration and they're going to root things out. And they're going to change how things work in D.C. and they're not going to accept the status quo. And this is something you've never seen before in our lifetime.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that this time around, this whole resist BS is not going to work. OK, the resist, it's just not going to work. People want change. We know that. So I want to get your take on where the growth is today. Joe, you have been an astute investor, certainly when it comes to defense, when it comes to real growth stories in America. Defense stocks were down as investors are worried about some changes coming to the Defense Department. But look, we need to bulk up our defense because we've got our adversaries on the march. How do you see that in terms of growth and investing around what we're about to see?
You know, Maria, I'm glad defense stocks are down. The public defense stocks should be down because the legacy defense companies are really close friends with the sclerotic bureaucracy and have been getting away with tons of nonsense and ripping off our country. And it's unacceptable. And they have a lot of people in Congress on their pay. They have a lot of people in the department going in and out on their pay. They have a lot of mediocre generals. You know what happened in the last time we did something like this is right around 1940. They took out hundreds of generals and they realized they were crony. They realized a lot of them were old, unfit. And by firing a lot of those people, it made way for people like Eisenhower, for people like Patton. I have a sword upstairs here. I keep the design from World War I. We had made a lot of the great men in our country came up and actually fixed things. And so what we want to see is we want to see defense stocks down, because what that shows is that things are going to get shaken up according to what the market's worried about. Because we actually need to make room for the new innovation and not just to keep funding people to do things cost plus that cost 10 times as much as they should. That's old. That's yesterday's technology. So this is very exciting to me.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. So, Joe, where specifically do you think we're going to be investing, and where is the growth within defense? Is it drones? Is it, crime-related products? What specifically are you looking at?
What we're looking at is all sorts of new. What's really going to be the biggest difference is you're going to have 5 or 10 new primes in this country. You're going to have the same type of people Elon Musk and Vivek are asking to come work 80 hours a week and work on Doge with high IQs. It's those sort of people with that background who are building the top new companies, whether it's Anduril, whether it's Saronic, whether it's Epirus, whether it's a handful of others. And so you have a bunch of competitors that are a whole new type of the very, very best and brightest from our innovation world that are coming and that are growing quickly. And what are the technologies? Yeah, it's swarms of autonomous drones, swarms of autonomous vehicles on the land and on the water. It's new types of much cheaper missiles. It's new types of electromagnetic defense. It's new types of electronic warfare. But what it really is, Maria, is it's the best and brightest from the young generation, partnering with the top technologies in the U.S., combining them with advances from Silicon Valley, and applying them in ways that terrify our enemies. And you see a handful of these companies, and they're mostly private right now, and they're going to break through, and they're going to end up being the key way that we deter the bad guys.
I love it. Joe, real quick on crypto. I was with one of the lawmakers last night on Digital Assets Committee, and he told me when Trump comes into office, we're going to see the crypto industry, blockchain-related companies, revolutionize our economy. Do you believe that? How do you think things change?
I think that the SEC has been harassing crypto, just like almost every other regulatory agency has been harassing every one of us and everything it does. And I think that, listen, you still want to stop any kind of crazy schemes, because there are crazy schemes that go on in crypto, and those will be stopped. But I think crypto will be a way that a lot of things can coordinate in AI, that a lot of things can coordinate in many parts of our economy. And I'm very bullish on what it's going to do when Trump comes in.
All right, Joe. Great to talk with you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Joe Lonsdale joining us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Breaking news right now. I just want to report that a source has confirmed to Fox Business that the International Longshoremen's Association has walked away from the negotiation table with the U.S. Maritime Alliance. Fox Business is told that the ILA is staying firm on not adding any new technology to the ports, despite the U.S.-Mexico officials saying that no jobs would be eliminated as part of dock automation. The deadline for the deal is January 15th. Our source says, quote, this is September all over again. Wow. So here we are watching the potential for this strike to cut into the growth we're talking about right now. Ryan, your reaction?
I think this plays into what I was just saying. I think inflationary pressure is going to be greater. Workers have more opportunity to negotiate than they have in a long time. We have a labor shortage in this country. Baby boomers retiring in droves. So labor inflation, I think, is going to be a big component. So I like having rosy-colored sunglasses on, too. I'm an optimistic guy, but I think there's a lot of pressure on inflation. And I believe the 10-year Treasury at 4.3, almost 4.4%, that's telling you that we haven't beaten inflation yet. And I think some of these pro-growth policies are going to be great, but I don't think it completely addresses the deficit right now, and I think labor is a big component of that.
Well, look at this. The ILA union walking away from the port negotiation talks. Guys, your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this trend where there's a sentiment that perhaps the Biden administration wouldn't step in and take any action to stop a strike. We saw union leaders really, frankly, turn away from Democrats. And I find this strike to be a really interesting one because it's focused on automation at ports where, that's in direct conflict with the kind of technologies you need to reduce emissions and the kinds of things that fit with the Biden agenda. So I'm really curious to see how this shapes out, particularly with President Trump coming into office.
I mean, is it realistic, Dan Muser, to say that there will be no new technology used at any of these ports?
No, Maria, I've had enough time in manufacturing and production, and every time automation, first of all, it improves quality, which improves sales and tends to lower cost. We've always added employees along the way.
Well, they're not having it. The unions
Right.
are not. The unions are not having it. The union workers are walking away. They say this is their number one issue. They're walking away from the negotiation, Jonathan. Where does this go?
This is surprising because it looked like this was going down the road of getting resolved. What, a month ago? We were talking about this a lot. But I think this idea that you're planting your flag on not innovating cannot be a good thing, and it's hard for any employer or anyone else to embrace that type of thing, to stay where we are, even though if they're committed to keeping the workers, that should be enough. But it's surprising that that's where they're staking their ground.
Cheryl, I'm wondering if this is one of the reasons that we're seeing this rally in stocks, because if you see the unions walk away from these negotiations, you start to think, well, wait a minute, maybe this is going to spike inflation. Maybe we do have a second spike in inflation. As Jason Trenner's research has told us, that moves the Federal Reserve to cut rates further. It's all connected. Your thoughts?
It is. And, I was looking at the Fed funds futures a couple of moments ago. You've now got this 75% chance you will get a cut next month. And, Fed Governor Waller was saying in a speech last month that inflation has been a roller coaster. So Fed officials are very aware that this is a very volatile situation when it comes to inflation. So we're not at that 2% target, to be clear here. And look, I will say one thing about, at least with the rental component of CPI, which has been an issue that we were speaking about a few moments ago. In the third quarter, rental vacancy rates hit 6.9%. That's a jump. So besides Baltimore and New York, the rest of the country, those numbers are actually, it looks like those numbers are going to continue to come down. The food component, though, that's a supply chain issue. Different story. Hard to say, Maria.
Well, what about that, Louis Navellier? You started our conversation talking about owner's equivalency rent. What do you see in this CPI report that you want to point out that strikes you? And does this news that the ILA union walking away from the port negotiations talk, does that change anything for you?
Well, they're concerned about automation because they think it's going to eliminate their jobs. Right. So somebody's got to talk to them that your jobs are not going to be eliminated, and then hopefully they can automate just like everyone else automates. It seems to be pretty silly. They agreed on a 61.5% pay increase, I think, over 3 years. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and there's a lot of changes at the ports. We got a problem with the Panama Canal being dry. We got a problem with California demanding that the cranes be electric instead of their diesel right now. So there's a lot of logistics problems, and we just don't need this at this moment. So worst case, get some more money, And
what about the owner's equivalency rent? What did you see in the CPI number that strikes you?
Yeah, it's stubborn. It's a problem, and it's very frustrating to a lot of us why the government numbers are so slow. Okay, so it's not the real world as far as I can tell, and hopefully the number will get progressively better. But the uptick in food and chicken, well, first of all, there's a bird flu that started in Washington State. My wife went to Avon's in Southern Cal. They had no chicken because of the bird flu. So at least I have a chicken stock, so I'm happy about that. But and then, Costco had its butter recall. So that's due to the FDA labeling. So there's 80,000 pounds of butter that just disappeared.
Well, I mean, look, this can't help. This can't help that the strike for the Longshoremen's Association is still going on, right? This can't help. This is only going to hurt the inflation story, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it'll get resolved because those are very high-paid workers. Those are very expensive cranes to operate, and it'll get resolved. I just think cooler heads have to prevail. They really have no business telling them how no automation. So we're just going to have to assure them that the automation will not threaten their jobs.